My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my video on why the ending of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania sucks. And yes, this review will have spoilers, so there's your warning. But yeah, I'm not in my usual setting here, but I do want to make this video, and let's just get to it. So Kang is the next Thanos. And they spent so much of this movie building him up as this real person to feel, as this real threat, not just to Scott and his family, but to the entire multiverse. And he gets beaten by ants. I'm sorry, at that point, I could not take him seriously. You never saw that level of disrespect towards Thanos. In fact, when we see him at the very beginning of Infinity War, he beats up the Hulk to establish just how badass he is. And then we've got Kang here who gets taken out by a bunch of ants. And then after that, he gets taken out by Ant-Man, who is one of the weakest Avengers. So just like that, I'm like, oh, so this is the guy I'm supposed to be scared of? Really? And he who remains or who should not be named or whatever was at the end of Loki. He gets killed, and then we've got this Kang, and he dies off too at the end of this movie. So we've been introduced to this character played by Jonathan Majors twice now, and both times he dies, and I'm supposed to be afraid of him? No, it's just backwards thinking. I don't care if there's hundreds of other Kangs, because as far as I'm concerned, he's just another generic villain who could be beaten up quite easily. And it just immediately undercuts everything. And this movie had every opportunity to end in an effective manner. Well, okay, the movie was shit up until the ending, but I would have at least given it credit if after Michelle Pfeiffer and Hank and Hope and the daughter make it into the out of the quantum verse, and then Kang and Scott have their little fight, if Kang actually, I'm just saying, kill Scott. What better way to establish this new threat as killing off one of the big Avengers? And of course they didn't do that, but it would at least have some weight if he just beat him up, left him in the quantum verse, and then he escaped through that portal, and it was just oh shit, he's free now. At least then I'd be okay, the movie was awful, but let's see what they do with this. But instead, they just kill him off. There's hundreds of other things they could have done. They could have had him kill off his daughter, and have Scott go serious, be Kang, and have him lose to him, then get left behind. It's just baffling. I do not understand why they went with the happy, safe ending. It's just pure shit. And on top of that, Scott has his happy montage at the start of this movie, and then he has the exact same montage at the end of it. And for a second, he's wait, what did he say? Did I just screw up? Did I just put the entire multiverse at risk? Nah. And then he just goes about his day. And then I'm you are going out of your way here to establish how little character he has. There's no growth. There is no arc. It's just stagnant. And it's so filler. It is so nothing that it feels like this entire movie didn't even need to happen. What do we know about Kang now that we didn't know at the end of Loki? Nothing. So it's not only a shitty movie, but it's also a shitty introduction to Phase 5 and a shitty setup to the rest of the MCU. So I just cannot comprehend some of the decisions made here. But while I'm talking spoilers, let's get into some of my other thoughts. First was MODOK. It's so ridiculous. But he's a terrible character throughout, and the jokes are just overdone and just stupid. And then they try to give him a redemption arc in the span of like 2 minutes. And then like he's dying and everybody's kind of making jokes about it, but the music is trying to be sad and it's just like, what's going on here? A terrible character. You had the, you know what? I complained about the pacing and structure, so let's go into that. This movie begins and we see a flashback, and then it cuts to Scott and his happy life, and then it's just like, oh, Cassie's a troublemaker, and then they all go to the Quantumverse, and for the first hour of this movie, it's just them wandering around, finding out things, hearing people talk about Kang, and it's just one long build-up to Kang. And then Kang kidnaps Scott and Cassie, and he's just like, I need you to do this for me. And you'd think like this would take up a big section of this movie, but Scott jumps, and then there's a bunch of Scotts for like a few minutes, and then like that's it. So it just feels like the entire movie was building up to this like 5-minute sequence, and then, oh, of course you've got, oh, he beats them up, he betrays them, and now it's the final battle. Like, just, it's just so bad. Like, if they got to the Quantumverse, and as soon as they landed, Cassie's kidnapped by Kang, and in order to free her, Scott agrees to work with him and to get him this object. So the entire character motivation is him trying to rescue his daughter. And then throughout, he meets people who are just like, you can't trust him. And there's this big moral dilemma that he could put trillions of lives at stake, but he loves his daughter and he wants more time with her. And Kang could promise that. And then, right before the last act, Scott decides to do the right thing, only for Kang to beat him up terrible. And like, he's just at rock bottom. He could have had everything he wanted, but now the multiverse will get destroyed. It'll be his fault. He didn't get Cassie. And then you get the big final act. Like, that would be much better. But here it's just a whole lot of nothing, and then a whole lot of plot in the span of like 10 minutes, and then just the final battle. Just, I cannot comprehend why they did it this way. And I know I already said it, but the fact that nobody dies is just weird. Trying to think of anything else. Cassie being an activist, I didn't really care for. Catherine Newton is so bad and just so flat in this movie. Okay, so they all travel to the quantum realm at the same time, but because the ants land in a different area, they age thousands of years, and it's just like, what is going on with this logic? And also, so much of the movie relies on the mom, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, not wanting to go back to the Quantumverse, but doesn't she literally send Scott there at the end of the second movie? There's the whole issue that this entire movie's plot is relying on Kang trying to get the PEM particles to shrink that thing. And like, this guy's a genius. He created an entire empire in the Quantumverse, and he can't create this? I don't buy that. I thought the big finale with Scott being big and entered in, and everyone's like, wow, he's really big. I'm like, not really. You guys are in the Quantumverse. Like, this isn't a big deal, and it's nothing new. The action had zero weight. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. The more I think about this movie, the more I hated it. I thought it was just terrible. It completely undercuts Kang as the next big villain. He's completely underwhelming, and he gets defeated by Ant-Man after he gets beaten down by ants. Like, that's just embarrassing. And Yeah, this movie's a disaster, but what are your thoughts on the ending of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania and on the rest of the movie? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for some more videos soon, and Gavin out.